Hello and welcome to another movie review here on HSG. Of course, once again, a nighttime review, so a little bit more eerie. And this particular flick is one which some of you would probably be surprised to know it took me quite a while to get around to watching. And to put all of my cards on the table, the reason why it took me quite a long time to get around to watching Unfriended from 2015 is because of a very similar phenomena for me that applies to movies like The Blair Witch Project. And that is, it just doesn't appeal to me. And I know it has its fans. Some of them are even critically acclaimed. You know, The Blair Witch is a legendary movie. But sometimes I just don't feel it. You know what I mean? There's a certain movie which people love and you just think, I don't really care. I just cannot be bothered to go out and see it. So I finally got around to watching Unfriended, which, in a similar way to Blair Witch and some others as well, has kind of started, I believe, in this case, its own subgenre. Because the plot of this particular flick is actually that a group of friends are on a Skype call together, and this unknown stranger is on the call with no profile picture, no feed. They cannot kick the person out of the room, and basically this person starts to play games with them and bring up maybe these seeding disagreements and stabbing in the back kind of relationship twinges between these friends, which kind of turns into a revenge story of sorts. Except, in a very clever turn of filmmaking, the entire movie is shot essentially in the same way as what I'm doing right now. It's all shot through a screen-recorded effect. You never move away from the screen. You don't even see the character looking at the screen. You don't see hands on a keyboard, nothing. It's just the screen with the mouse clicker moving around, and the only sound effects are what go through the computer. So you can hear mouse clicks, you can hear the audio that's going through the Skype, but nothing else. You cannot hear the character talking to herself, because it is a female primary character. None of this outside stuff plays into it. I love that. That is superb filmmaking. It's a great choice to make. It makes things realistic, simple, very classy, far classier than it could have been. And it actually adds to this feeling of really genuinely being in the moment, especially if you watch this movie on a laptop. That is perfect. It really gets you in the mood. Now, as far as whether or not I would recommend this flick, well, if it's not already obvious, yes, I actually would. Now, I haven't watched a ton of movies within this genre, so I'm sure there are some awful ones, maybe some great ones. I believe this one even has a number of sequels, which you can kind of tell I haven't watched. So, again, I can't speak to those yet. But what I will say is this one for sure I would recommend watching. Now, this is not a movie for, a gore fiend. It's not even necessarily a movie for somebody who wants non-stop horror. This is more the kind of movie which is kind of more of a coming-of-age bullying thriller kind of thing, if that's even a genre. Similar, actually, to my book, Buddy. That's a coming-of-age bullying thriller, but with elements of horror in there. More horror scenes rather than, non-stop Jason or Freddy kind of stuff. So if you want that, then this isn't the movie for you. If you want something that's a little bit more unique, certainly in 2015 it would have been, then this is the flick for you. Now, as far as spoiler talk goes, there's only one primary thing that I need to get into. So, if you haven't seen the movie, leave now, check it out, maybe come back and tell me your thoughts. But for those who I will assume have seen the movie, who are watching this far in the video, the thing that I want to touch on is obviously the fact that I technically lied earlier on when I said that the whole movie takes place on the screen, because of course, the very last shot of the movie is not on the screen. The character slams the laptop shut, and then the, ghost of the killed girl jumps on her. And roll credits. I didn't like that. I'll be honest with you. I did not like that ending. I think that the rest of the film was very good. The characters were actually surprisingly likable for the most part. And I don't mean that I wanted to be friends with them, and that's not a pun. I mean that the characters actually played believable enough roles. I didn't find any of them too cliched. There might have been some skating around cliches sometimes, but the characters I feel actually had good chemistry together, and I think they worked well together on screen. They had believable interactions, disagreements, when of course, and again I'm awful with names, but when the main boyfriend finds out that the main girl cheated on him with the other guy who's in the chat with the gun, that stuff was effective because with minimal introductions, I actually found that I did care to some degree about what happened to these kids. That, for me, immediately makes me respect a filmmaker, because most of the time I could not care less about kids in movies. From, young kids to late teens, most of them are not great actors, not written particularly well. Most of them are a walking cliche or just some kind of, plot device or catalyst for the movie to get going. In this occasion, I felt that they were realistic enough characters to keep the believability, but also characters who were flawed, certainly. They were characters who were technically all villains within the realm of bullying, and yet you kind of do still root for them. That's good filmmaking, because if you can make people who have technically done something very wrong or make the audience want to, still side as much as they can with people who have done something like that, that's good filmmaking, as far as I'm concerned. I do believe that the ending should have been done differently, even if it was just a cut to black, which was totally ambiguous. I believe that could have been more effective, because the ending just felt a little bit too much for me. The slamming shot was a cheap jump scare, and then the girl jumping on top of her felt too much like it was aping, J-horror. Some of those Japanese ghost kind of horror stories. But, it was forgivable. It certainly didn't ruin the movie for me. Now, as far as rewatchability, I don't think it has as much for me. But then again, I'm also not the kind of person who watches the same movies that often. There are a couple of films which I will watch multiple times, generally my favourites, of course. But even then, I honestly prefer to spend the majority of my movie watching time watching something new, something that I haven't experienced yet. Because if I've got a movie that's a favourite of mine, well, I already love it. I already know that. Give me something new. I want to find something new that I love. So generally when I do rewatch something, it tends to be with somebody who hasn't seen it, or like for a rewatch on YouTube or whatever. So I don't see myself revisiting this one soon. But I did like it. I appreciated the filmmaking. It's definitely something which has been, more and more saturated in the market. But I think it was a cool idea. And I will actually go so far as to say that I believe this is one of the best examples of techno horror. Because in the earlier 2000s, there were way too many of those movies. Obviously, you've got The Grudge. Or not The Grudge, The Ring, which plays heavily into technology. And there were ones like, One Missed Call, and I don't even remember what the other names are, but they're all very samey. You've got like Neighbours level characters, like soap opera teens, basically, in these movies, and most of them, they're schlocky, they're trashy. I'm not a fan of them, but some of them break through. And I believe that this one is one of the better examples of techno horror. So it wouldn't surprise me if this one has a pretty strong following. I believe it does deserve it. So of course, tell me your thoughts down below. Were you a fan of the movie? Did you not like it as much? Of course, provide reasons either way if you can. And of course, stick around on the channel for more thrillers, horror, and incidentally, if you are a fan of the subgenre mixing of stuff like bullying with horror, then you should definitely check out my book, my first book called Buddy. I've got a lot of great feedback on it from readers, and I'm glad that people enjoy it. It was specifically designed to be read more than once as well, and you will get more out of it each time you read it. So overall, check that out if you feel so inclined, and of course, stick around on the channel for more movie reviews. But until next time, I'll see you then, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.